I had a lot of debating in my head of like, why do you want to finish this?
Right.
Is it because you love superlatives? Because it is. I do love superlatives, but superlatives are not enough for this.
Is it because you're a stubborn ass New Yorker? Yeah. Hi, everyone. Welcome to They Had Fun. I'm Rachel, and I am back with another amazing story about New York City. But up first are my two Rachel's Recs for you. Those are my personal New York City recommendations of things you can do to have some fun of your own in New York this weekend. Then we're going to hear from my fabulous guests. Let's go ahead and get into the recs. Okay, I had friends in town this weekend, and I was sitting down to think about what was some of the stuff we did, what was I liking, what am I going to share as my recommendations, and I just kept landing on the same thing. So, these are some of my old best girlfriends. We all lived in New York when we first moved here together, and we had a lot of fun. You might say a little too much fun. Is that possible? I don't know, but I will say Thursday night we were out until 1:30. Friday night we were out until 3:30. Saturday night 1:30. So, the gals still got it. I can say that. Okay, so the point of the story is my two recommendations are going to be the two things that really worked out the best in our favor, in my opinion. So let me give you a little background. Friday night, we're out. We are doing so much stuff. We're having drinks. We go to happy hour. We have drinks. We go see a show at La Mama. Then we go to Lil Frankie's for dinner. That was good. We finish up there probably around, I'm going to say like 11 o'clock. And everyone at this point is just like itching. Like, we got to get out there. We got to go do something. And we just start walking around the East Village trying to find a bar to go into. So we're walking down St. Mark's. I get into my head, we can pop into Romeo's. Old guest of the show is a bartender there. It is completely slammed. I mean, there's just people like lining St. Mark's. There's so many people out. It's incredible. And I'm like, okay, we can't get in there. We then start walking down St. Mark's. We run into these guys out on the street. We start chatting with them. They know old friends of ours. We have a little convo. Okay, it's probably like midnight at this point, maybe 11:30. And the crowd's starting to get a little restless. Like, Rachel, we need a drink. And, I'm so worried about being the person who's like showing off New York is so great. And I'm like, I got to figure something out. Okay, we're going to go over to 2nd Avenue. We're trying to go into this other bar. They're putting up their chairs. I'm like, oh my God, no. And they're like, Rachel, what's happened to this city? Like, we can't even go out anymore. I'm like, oh my God, feeling the pressure. I have to show them something. I run across the street. I run over to my first recommendation, Bar Veloce. And what do you know it? They give us a prime outdoor table. It's like probably 12:30 at this point. They give us a lovely bottle of rosé. We proceed to sit outside and laugh our asses off and gossip and just have the best time on the streets of 1st Avenue. So kudos to Bar Veloce for actually sticking to their hours. No diss to some of the other bars that we went to check out previously. I get you have to close early, but it was a Friday night and Bar Veloce said they close at 1:30 and they let us stay. Even on top of that, around like 1:15, they came around and said last call, offered us another bottle of wine, which we turned down. At the time, we thought that was a good idea, but knowing us, it was not, because once 1:30 rolled around, I was like, oh my God, we actually do want another one. I ran inside. I'm like, I'm so sorry. We'd love another bottle of wine. And they were so lovely. They were like, we've closed out the register. We can't even give you one. I would love to, like, so sorry. No prob. Totally understand. Now, this is where we get into Rachel's rec number 2. I'm like, we got to keep the party going. We all want to keep the party going. We go right across the street to good old standby, 12th Street Ale House. Now, I don't know if you've ever been there, but I don't know. Maybe I guess I would call it kind of like a dive bar. It's not like grungy or anything, but it's just like a classic go-to bar. I don't spend a terrible amount of time there in my sober hours, I guess I would say, or my not super drunk hours. But anyways, we go over there. More drinks ensued. Now, did I get hit on by a young man at the bar, even with my like approaching 40-year-old ass? Yeah, I did. So thank you for that, 12th Street Ale House. Anyways, we wound up staying there until about like 3:30-ish. We just had the best time. And as I looked back at our weekend with very fuzzy memories, I thought, it was the most fun out of everything we did, besides all of the laughter and all of the time spent together, was the fact that there were these two spots. Old standbys ready to go, having their door open for the crowds of New York City to continue their drinking. And I just love that. So am I going to these two spots on a Wednesday for happy hour with my girlfriends? Maybe not, but am I going there on a Friday at 2 a.m. with my girlfriends? Yeah, I am. So thank you, Bar Veloce, and thank you, 12th Street Ale House. And if you are like me and you are with friends and you are in a predicament and you are worried about other things being closed, Bring yourself over to the East Village and have a good time. All right, those are my 2 recommendations. Let's go ahead and get into my guest for this week because, frankly, in my eyes, she's the queen of podcasting, whether she wants to accept that or not. But of course, she has a couple of different titles. She runs a podcast recommendation letter. It's called Earbuds. You can sign up for it in our show notes. She also works in podcast production. I told you she is the queen. Please welcome to the show, Arielle Nissenblatt.
Thank you for having me. That's a rollicking good time of an intro. It was just like really smooth. It was like an announcer. I'm welcomed.
I've gotten this feedback from our guests so many times that I'm like, am I a used car salesman? Like what is this energy I'm putting off? Because
no, it's like carnival announcer.
Even worse.
Or an auctioneer, but better.
Wow. Okay. Well, for me, it is my excitement for my guests because 1, I'm obsessed with New Yorkers. 2, I think anyone who agrees to do something like this is probably interesting or cool. And 3, for you, I know you. I know who you are. Maybe people who aren't as into the podcasting industry might not know who you are, but like everything we go to for like podcasting, I was like, oh, Arielle. And then, we're out and we're getting drinks. And I was like, why aren't you on my show? And you're like, I'd love to do it. I'm becoming a tour guide. Oh yeah, add that to your intro. You're becoming a New York City tour guide. I don't know what element you want to choose from to talk about in your illustrious, and I do mean that, podcasting career, but why don't you talk a bit about what you do in the industry?
First of all, thanks for saying so many nice things about me. I don't expect people to know who I am, but if they do, that's really, really nice. More so, I just want them to listen to podcasts.
Yeah.
I write a podcast recommendation newsletter. I've been writing it since 2017. Really just like listening to podcasts, and I think other people would too if they don't already. And then professionally, in addition to the newsletter, I help people make podcasts. And then I do some consulting on finding an audience for that podcast that you've just made, because a lot of people make a show, it's really great, but they haven't really figured out who it's for. So I try to help them figure out who it's for, and then how to get the show to those people, and then how to get those people to continue listening to that. That's, very in the weeds. I think the fun stuff that I do, I also host a bunch of podcasts about the podcast industry. I host a show about podcast trailers. I host a show about podcast elevator pitches. I want you to call in and tell me why I should listen to your podcast. And then I have another podcast recommendation podcast. And then I also host a daily video podcast called Daily Tips that may or may not help you. So I really just try to practice a lot of the podcasting technique to be able to give advice to people who might be interested in trying it out themselves.
I mean, when I said the queen, I meant it. I mean, every single thing you do in your life is in the podcasting industry. Just what you do professionally. I'm like, can I get some of that help? I'd love to know how to figure out who my audience is. Because right now I just feel like it's like drunk people and like New Yorkers.
That's great.
Yeah. I'm like,
I want the drunk people.
Who wants it? Me too. That's my dream. Okay. You're literally doing it all. You have such a wealth of knowledge. The fun stuff is you are passionate about this job. You are passionate about stories and people hearing stories and people getting their stories to other people. And that is what makes you an excellent guest for my show. So let's go ahead and get into it. First up, when did you move to New York?
I am from the New York area originally. I say area. I'm from Westchester, which is north of the city. I'm from White Plains.
Okay.
And I went to college in upstate New York, Binghamton. And after college, all of my friends were moving back to New York City. And I was kind of like, I know I'm going to do that eventually, but I want some time to do my own thing. So I moved to Jackson, Mississippi. For 2 years, I was there.
As one does.
Classic. Then I moved to St. Louis for a little bit. Then I moved to Los Angeles for 4 years. Then I moved to Portland, Maine for a little bit. And then, to answer your question, in 2021, January 2021, I moved back to New York. And I've been living here ever since.
Oh my gosh, January 2021. Does White Plains count as New York City?
No, not at all.
Okay, so really, we're going to be sticklers here because I tend to be like that. January 2021 is when you first moved to New York City.
Yeah, New York City for
That's
sure.
Somewhat recent. I thought it was a little bit longer than that.
I know. People think I've been here for longer because, to be fair, Westchester County, which is the county that White Plains is in, is not New York City. It is one county north of the Bronx.
Right.
And I'm very serious about that because I would never want to pretend to be a native New York City dweller.
Thank you.
However, we went into the city every weekend as kids, and all of my camp friends were here, and I have a lot of core memories from my childhood in New York City. So it doesn't feel when I moved here like it was like a fresh city for me to discover myself in. I had kind of already known who I was going to be.
I really like the trajectory here of kind of like, you're like, I'll do that eventually.
I knew it. I just knew it.
Mississippi, St. Louis, LA, like all these things. It leads me in perfectly to our second question, which is why did you move to New York? Because I'm just thinking like, listen, you had the opportunity in front of you. You love the city, obviously. You have a connection to it from birth. You went to all these places. Why did you move to New York in 2021?
So in July of 2020, I would say right when the pandemic started in March of 2020, I was living in a house with two friends and we had a lot of fun. I was walking dogs and working full time for a podcast company. I was walking like 10 miles a day, dogs, 10 miles a day. It was amazing. It was like the time of my life. I'm sorry to say, but I like really thrived during this time. But still, you go, I would like come home at the end of the day from walking dogs, been masked up all day. And I was like, when am I ever going to see my family again? Like, I don't know how this is ever going to end. Like, I just like got nervous and I felt so physically distant from New York.
Yeah.
And it made me think like, okay, maybe now's the time to go back and do that thing. So I moved to my parents' house and then for like 2 months was looking for a place in New York. Ultimately, I moved back because I wanted to have the experiences that my friends were having in New York. I definitely feel like I missed out on my early 20s in New York.
Yeah.
And I try to make myself okay with that. And I think I am to an extent because obviously I had other experiences. But, I'm reintegrated now with like my camp friends that I grew up with and all my school friends that moved into the city. And that's a great thing.
I have two thoughts. First is, it sounds like you kind of moved here for the fun. I gotta say.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, yeah.
We're family, but also to have a good time.
For the fun.
And number two, I can tell you from personal experience, if you would like to have an early 20s experience right now, at whatever age you are in New York City, you can do it.
You can do it. I know every once in a while, I would say like twice a year, I have one of those where you're like, oh, I'm not going to be okay for a little while now.
Oh God, that's like me every weekend. You can do it. We'll do it together. Perhaps we have done it together, but I love to hear that thing. It's like, listen, you had the childhood growing up near here, but also knowing that everyone that you knew was here in this fabulous, super fun city to go out and do all these things. And it's, I guess, like a little bit of the FOMO of like, I got to finally do it and be there. I think you're pretty happy with that decision, correct?
Yeah. I'm happy to be here. I love being closer to my parents. And I love old buildings. I love old cities that, you can just like walk through the streets and the history. I love a walkable city. And we'll get into that. Walking is a big part of my story.
Ooh, I like our perfect little segue there. Now we can go into the most important question of the show. And that is, of course, Arielle, what is the most fun you've ever had in New York City?
Thank you for asking. I'm going to focus on walking. I love walking for transportation. I've been into it for a really long time. I've just always been obsessed with the idea that your body can take you from one place to another. You don't need anything. You don't need a bike. You don't need a car. You don't need a train, whatever. Your body can do it. And when I moved here, I decided to do tip to tip. I did something similar to what a recent guest of yours did, which is that like we had, fun things to stop at along the way. We had some food. So I love walking for distance. And all of this culminated in the longest walk I've ever done in a day, which is called the Great Saunter. Are you familiar with this?
Wait, is this the one where you go around the outside? Mm-hmm. I'm familiar, but I have never done it.
Oh, thank God. I'm so glad. I'm about to enlighten you.
Because you're going to blow my mind or because it was a terrible
No, I've done it 3 times. I've done it 2.5 times. 2.5 times.
Okay.
But okay. So I found out about it because I did tip to tip and my cousin joined and he's like lifelong New Yorker, Queens, and then Manhattan. And now he's in Boston and he misses it, but he's dealing. And he was like, you might be interested in this thing called the Great Saunter. Basically, it's put on by this organization called Shore Walkers that I'm not exactly sure the depth of their mission, but from what I understand, it's maintaining pathways along the shore of the island of Manhattan. Mm-hmm. And what the Great Saunter does is you pay $32 to do it. You get a bib. You start at 7 a.m. at Francis Tavern, all the way at the bottom tip of Manhattan, and you end however many hours later at the same exact spot going around the perimeter of the island. Mm-hmm. First year I did it, it was 2022. It was still sort of pandemic-y, like things weren't completely opened up. And I just did not feel motivated to like ask a bunch of friends to do this thing with me, which was an insane ask. Mm-hmm. So I did it myself and it rained the entire time. And
you completed this in the rain?
No.
Oh, okay.
No.
Sorry. I've done it
2.5 times. This is the half one.
I'm sorry.
So I start and I'm thinking like, oh, maybe I'll like make some friends along the way. Wouldn't that be cool? If you opt in to do this, you're probably a weirdo. Like everybody probably wants to be friends with each other.
Right.
And I also like theoretically had told my friends, like, I'm going to be approximately at this point at this time. Meet me here. Like, does anybody have a dry sweatshirt that I could borrow? Because it was pouring at a point.
Wow.
I brought extra pants. I brought extra shoes. But that also meant that I had to carry the wet, soaking pants and shoes in my backpack that I brought along. The rain kept turning my phone on, like turning the screen on. So it died like 20 minutes in, and I did not have a phone.
Oh my
and
God.
I made it. I wasn't in too much pain until like the 10th mile, which is somewhere around the George Washington Bridge. By the time I got there, I was like, okay, yeah, phone's been dead for a bit. I need to think of a way to get my friends to bring me a charger, but how am I going to do that? So I had to like make friends with somebody who would give me a charger and then charge it just long enough to give my friends an estimation of when I would be at the place. Anyway, around the halfway point, which is Inwood, the tip of Manhattan, I made a friend. and
Finally.
And this is because at the tip of Manhattan, the directions get a little funky. You could kind of tell like people looking all around being like, where do we go? Where do we go? So I made friends with a few of the other people who were confused. And we walked together for 10 more miles. And by the time I was at Carl Schurz Park, I couldn't lift my legs. And I was tight. My hip joints were tight to a point that I've never felt before. And I was like, I had a lot of debating in my head of like, why do you want to finish this?
Right.
Is it because you love superlatives? Because it is. I do love superlatives, but superlatives are not enough for this.
Is it because you're a stubborn ass New Yorker? Yeah.
So at around 70th Street, I start making my way inland. Oh, wow. I move away from the shore and it's freezing. It's 50 degrees and it's raining and I am
miserable,
soaked to the bone. I am miserable. My phone is dead. I didn't see a friend because nobody could find me. I couldn't use Uber because my phone was dead. So I had to hail a cab, and I was living in Queens, and I was living not in close Queens. I was living like 45 minutes out. And I gave the address to the driver and he starts making his way. And then it's been like an hour and I'm like, this is a little bit too long. And by that time my phone had charged. Right? I had enough time to juice it in the car. So I now was like, we are definitely off course here. And my legs are throbbing. I'm like not doing well. And I finally had it in me to speak up and be like, I don't think we're near where we're supposed to be. And he was like, oh, did you mean like, you know how Queens has dashes?
Oh, Queens. I was going to say it's like
Yeah.
35 Ave, 35
it was
Road,
bad.
35. Oh, wow.
We were far away.
Yeah.
Turns out at the end, he gave me a $20 bill because he kept me in so long. He was like, I'm so sorry. And I was like, I appreciate that because I think I did like unload on him that like I had just walked, I think it was like
That's
22
rough.
might at that
That's
point, 24
rough.
miles.
Wow.
Anyway, didn't make it that year. I did it the following year. And
I like it's all just the lead up.
yeah,
We're not even at the good stuff yet.
I guess it's just like beautiful that I
Yes,
have
yeah,
the gumption.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I don't know. The second year I did it, I did do it alone, but I was a little bit more prepared. I had a charger with me. It did not rain. I practiced a little bit, still like, beforehand, I probably did like a few 10 milers here and there, but no one ever prepares you for 32 miles in a day. It's too much.
It's nuts.
I, again, thought I would make friends, did not make friends. I'm like, why are people so unfriendly on this walk? Like,
Yeah, I'm not liking that element of it. Like I would be doing the exact same thing. I'd be trying to talk to everybody and like, what are you guys doing?
I was really trying. Anyway, I made it the second year. It was really, really painful. And I like couldn't walk I would say like couldn't walk well for 2 days. And then it still hurt for like another week.
Oh,
and then I was like, I got to do this again.
Yeah.
So then the next year comes around and I convinced a friend to do it with me. So we started at 7 a.m., finished at around 8 p.m. I was weirdly not in any pain at the end of it. My friend was unwell. We afterwards, like, I don't know how, by the grace of God, got in a cab and made it back to Brooklyn and went into some very old school Italian diner type thing. We had so much pasta that we could not finish, but we just like needed to be alone for a while. And then we just kind of like vegged out on our couches. And to bring it full circle, as I did 2.5 times around Manhattan,
Yes.
I like to think about like, why do I care about walking? Why do I care about making a complete circle? Because you better believe I touched the brick at Francis Tavern to start, and I had to touch it at the end. You gotta do the whole thing. And everyone always asks me like, oh, are you like raising money for something? And I'm like, yeah, sure, kind of, like for shore walkers. But they're all like, oh, is it for like cancer? So I'm like, no, it's for the shore. Like it's for the concept of the shore of New York. And I just think that that's a beautiful thing. And I think you can do whatever the hell you want in New York. And sometimes that means walking in a circle.
Yeah, I gotta say, Arielle, I gotta give this to you. Bill, I'm like, what's the most fun you ever had? Here's like, here's all the worst shit that ever happened to me, and my foot's killing me, and
I'm with you. My foot wasn't killing me. I had a great time.
Yeah.
So it's the most fun I've ever had because it allows you the most opportunity to just like be out and about, and it allows for so much serendipity to come. And I love the challenge of it.
Yeah.
I will do it again one day. I just need a break this year.
No, I totally get. No, I'm half joking, but I totally get it because listen, this is such a New York thing to be like, it has to be the hardest, biggest, like most complicated, and I'm having so much fun while I'm doing it.
I promise.
Like, it's so New York, but it is. No, I totally understand what you're saying. Like, yes, there is like the arduousness behind it and the physical tax and like all of that, but it is so fun. Like it is a fun story. What you're saying, the serendipity of it all. Who knows what could happen? Are you going to run into someone? Are you going to be like, I can't make the whole thing? It's all of it. And it's that essence of what New York is at all times, which is everyone who's ever been on the show tells some sort of story like this, where no matter what the subject or narrative or whatever is, it's these things of anything can happen to you in New York. And like, if I'm just going to put a personal spin on it, I have done the tip to tip several times and I enjoy it so much. And the older I'm getting, and like my body is fucking killing me. We're like at the end, I'm like, my feet, like my hips. And that's only, first of all,
half
13, like something like that. Yeah. It's not even close. I don't know how you guys do this. I don't know how you wake up at 7 a.m. I love New York more than anyone. And I'm like, I don't know if I can do this.
All for the love of the circle.
Yeah, for the love of the circle. It's just so, it is like the epitome of just an intense New Yorker to me, which I love so deeply in my heart. Like the city and this people, this is it. This is the pinnacle of it. Walk all the way around Manhattan, see what can happen. Maybe you'll stop. Maybe you'll meet a new friend. Maybe you'll get some food. Maybe your phone will die. Anything can happen.
Yeah.
And I hope that it inspires someone to go out and do the Great Saunter.
Yay.
Okay. Now I have to ask you my last question of the show, which I know we sort of like touched on it here, but let's see what you're going to say. What is your favorite thing about New York?
Did I ever tell you that I keep a list of all the people I bump into in New York?
No.
And the circumstances in which I bump into them?
I love that.
It's so fun. It's the best.
That.
So I have a list dating. I started it in like 2023. So it's not the whole time that I've been here. But I just really feel like I'm a coincidences person. Like if I feel like something's going to happen, it happens for some reason. And I'm not saying I have magical powers. I'm not a woo-woo type person. Like really, I'm quite the opposite. But I love a coincidence. My friend Shira and I joke around whenever we're out and about that our heads are always on a swivel. We love to say hello to someone because you never know what's going to come of that hello.
Yeah.
I've bumped into people who then I've gotten coffee with and then I've like worked on their podcast or I've helped their company start a podcast. So yeah, business, sure, but also like friendship and beautiful stuff like that. Like the other day I was walking in the city and somebody that has done the Great Saunter, I ran into her. And as I was running into her, she looked behind me and ran into someone else that she knew. And I was like, this island is so small. Yeah. Anyway, that's my favorite thing about New York. Maybe that the island is so small and like, I like to believe in the magic of it. And that's my favorite thing about New York.
I love this answer. No one's ever said this answer. It's kind of like running into people, coincidence, happenstance. And it's so true. I mean, just the other day, I'm sitting outside having a drink with my husband on East 18th Street. And then my best friend and her husband, who I talk to every day that I just had not talked to that day, comes walking down East 18th Street. We don't live in this neighborhood. We don't do anything. She didn't know what I was doing. I was supposed to go to a different bar, but there was no seats outside. And I went to this bar and
you sat outside.
Yeah, and we were outside instead of at the bar. Like, so, you know, whatever, maybe the hard people who listen to the show are like, oh, wow, you guys run into people. But it's like, no,
it's fun. It feels like magic.
I love that about New York. It is so fun and anything can happen, whether you know that person or not. The coincidence of things happening. It makes sense that this is your favorite thing. And I love that you have that list. Someone with as bad a memory as me needs to create my own list for something like that.
It's really fun to do.
Really good.
And then, you know, eventually I'll put it up and like see if there's any patterns. I used to also keep a list of every time I got on a subway, what was the number of the subway car just to see if it ever happened twice or like what the patterns were of that. Keep a lot of weird lists.
Wow.
A lot of New York shit.
A lot of New York lists. My type of lady. Arielle, thank you so much for being on the show, for telling that wonderful, extremely long, arduous Fun story.
Thank you for having me. Such a blast.
Aw.
And may we walk around New York soon.
Oh, we will. You think you're going to get away from me? Most of all, thanks, New York. They had fun.